Everything we do today, this video recording, the messages I'm sending you, the emails, everything, all the data we're storing, is just binary. It's just zeros and ones. And that was for the last 100 years. So that's where the AI plays hard. Then the next 100 years, the next 21st century, we call it is going to be the society of atoms, because everything is made out of atoms. And understanding how the atoms behave, it means using quantum mechanics.
Welcome to Tough Tech Today with Mayan and Miller. This is the premier show featuring trailblazers who are building technologies today to solve tomorrow's toughest challenges.
Welcome to Tough Tech Today. My co-host Forrest and I are joined by my old friend and colleague, Fernando Dominguez Pinuaga. He is the vice president at SandboxAQ, and we are honored to have him join us because we are part of the quantum sciences theme for our show. And so this episode, we think you audience members and Tough Tech champions will get a great sort of 360 perspective on the world of quantum and also how it interfaces with the world of artificial intelligence. And so, Fernando, welcome. Could you give us some orientation on SandboxAQ and what it is and some of the challenges that you're focusing on right now?
Of course. Hi, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Jamie and Forrest. SandboxAQ works on the convergence of AI and quantum science. The A is for AI, the Q is for quantum. And we work on many challenging problems for humanity, and we found solutions with these two tools that can help have a positive impact on humanity. I'll give you one or two examples. GPS jamming and spoofing, for example. We use magnetic navigation to solve that problem. So airplanes, ship containers, and ships, boats, etc. can navigate when they lose GPS signal. We work on drug development, on developing also new materials or new batteries to solve the energy problem that keeps on hurting humanity for the last decade. We need to understand the world of atoms to be able to solve this problem. And we use AI combining with the world of atoms and quantum mechanics to develop new drugs, new proteins, new simulations, our AI simulation tool. And finally, we also work on the cryptography field, for example, modernizing cryptography. Quantum computing, I'm going to present new quantum threads for all our encryption and all our infrastructure and networks in the next years. We need a new kind of solution, and for that, you need to modernize our encryption. So these are some of the areas that we're working on the convergence of AI and quantum, always to have a positive impact on humanity.
That's amazing. So quite a broad array of problems that you're tackling. And I'm just wondering about the approach of your company. Do you have a particular, reusable framework that allows you to attack a lot of problems very efficiently? Or is the scale of your company so huge that you can attack multiple things at the same time?
That's a really good question. So we're working on these different fields that are somehow associated with quantum mechanics, but doesn't always involve quantum computers, for example. We don't use right now quantum computers. We will use them and integrate them in a hybrid computational model once they're ready. So we work on technologies and problems that we see of value, a market value. I'll give you an example. The GPS navigation is a huge problem that you can see it on the news almost every day. I read some news in some newspaper talking about, especially in conflict areas, zones like Ukraine, Middle East, etc. But also in science investigation areas like the Arctic, where you lose GPS. And it involves everybody, everywhere. With your phone, you have your GPS constantly. Your infrastructure, your smart grid depends on GNSS. So those problems that tackle us every day, when you find a solution today and that brings value, we have partners and customers on each one of those areas. Our North Star is the market validation. We work on areas that we have partners and customers that say, there is value in what you guys are doing. The combination of AI and quantum mechanics that you guys found, it's a new solution that we haven't seen it before, and we're ready to work with you on that. We had other explorations in the past. However, either the technology wasn't ready, either the market wasn't ready. Those are there under research or investigation. Once they're ready, we will bring them out and we will work with the partners at the right time.
How does one, it sounds like you have like I would describe it as a trunk of technology, kind of like a tree trunk, sort of a center of focus. How, for like other tough tech entrepreneurs, how do you start to stage those opportunities, or to assign the priorities, or maybe the managing? I mean, there are lots of unknowns, or lots of different buckets of risk. How are you finding, like, kind of culturally, you can kind of manage that within an organization?
Sure. Well, it's just proof and error, right? And testing and seeing what the customer really cares about. Well, you got to listen to those partners. You got to sit down with them. You got to embed yourself inside the problems and really understand what, I don't know, industry players, hospitals, healthcare providers, telecommunication companies. When we talk about navigation, we sit down with a Boeing Airbus that we're working with, and we listen to them, and then you can hear about, this is the problem I'm really having. Instead of getting stuck with your solution, before you start with the solution, you say, you understand the problem. And then you go back to the combination of solutions that AI and quantum together can offer. Say, okay, how can we use those to really solve that problem? Let me give an example. When we started, when we discovered the quantum sensing space, and we understood that there was a huge space out there, and it wasn't clear where to start. You can start sensing almost everything underground. You can sense chips, for example, to measure the quality. And then inside your body, you can sense cells. You can sense your blood. You can sense your brain, your heart. That each one of those has a different level of accuracy that you require. And the brain is much more complicated, for example. So that's why we started with the heart. And right now we have our medical device in hospitals measuring real patients' data. We probably wouldn't have been able to do that with the heart because it's much more complicated. It will get there. There are some great startups and research labs and universities doing that research. However, the fact that it's much more complicated will make it much harder to bring it to market. So the market for the heart is right there. Plus, the heart diseases are the #1 cause of death worldwide. So you tackle a huge problem and you bring a new solution that is not measured right now, magnetocardiography instead of electrocardiography. So that's a new solution, and the cardiologists that we work with are really excited with the results that we're showing right now. So that's the signal, right? You talk to the cardiologists, different hospitals, they tell you, I love this. They tell you that's what I need. If you're able to show me that kind of signal, if you're able to show me that kind of data from the patients that today I'm not able to read, you are solving a big problem for me. And then that's the direction that you have to take. So the market is the one signaling your direction and telling you that's ready, that's not ready.
I think some of our listeners might, they have a broad technical background. Some of them might actually be new to the field. So I think it'd be helpful if we kind of take a step back and kind of explain in a little more detail the tool sets that's available to you from the AI, and the Q, quantum, and just a little more detail on like what each one of these kind of brings to the table.
Perfect. Let's share a little bit of story, I think maybe of how the team started. So the team started from a research perspective or educational perspective. We have education in our DNA. Jack Hidari was hired by Sergey Brin at Google X to start like an entrepreneur residence. And he started bringing more physics professors from Berkeley and other universities to teach new techniques coming from quantum mechanics to try to understand AI models. So it was using quantum mechanics to understand AI models because we thought like if we can understand AI models better, we can build better models. And on the same approach, we started using the AI to understand the value of quantum mechanics. And we discovered that there were like these two new areas that were not being really addressed, which were like quantum cryptography, quantum communications and security, quantum sensing, and quantum simulation. Most of the efforts and the investment have been going on for the last decade for quantum computer, building the new computers using quantum mechanics, but not to these three areas. And we discovered by testing error, just building experiments, doing prototypes, proofs of concept, that applied AI to quantum mechanics, we could bring a lot of value. What does this mean? Let me give you an example. when you have a magnetometer, that it's a quantum measurement device, basically, it's not something new. So quantum physics has been there for 100 years, since the 1920s, so it depends when you come. But it's not something new. Transistors come from quantum physics, GPS comes from quantum physics, MRIs comes from quantum physics, so everything kind of related to light, it's based on some quantum physics theory. So knowing that it's not something new, how do you apply AI to it? Magnetometers are great sensing, but the signal that you receive at the beginning, it's very messy because you're sensing too much. That's why when you do an MRI, you go into a seal room and it's cold, and it's a very expensive machine because there are many factors external that interfere with that machine that is trying to measure something specific inside your body. Now with AI, our device, for example, which is the size of a shoebox, a little bit bigger, you don't need the seal room, and you can measure and you can move it across the hospital, which means the device can be much cheaper. You can bring it to many more hospitals, not just the ones that have millions of dollars to spend, but you can bring it to all hospitals around the world and have a measurement because we use AI to denoise that signal. So that level of AI did not exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. But the level of AI today has made us possible that we use the similar sensors. Now we're developing better sensors. But with the existing sensor, we are able to read things that we were not able to read before. And that's how you're using AI to those sensors, for example, to be able to really read the signal and tell the end user, which is the cardiologist or the operator in the room, here is your heart signal that you want to measure. And everything that happens in between what the machine is really reading, the AI models that clean the signal, and the end, that's what we take care of.
On the topic of separating signals amid the noise across multiple fields and domains, I want to tell you about telemetry by the End Effector. This is a newsletter that I recently debuted. And so in there, I cover the business of breakthroughs in these kind of advanced technologies, emerging sciences, and inventive design. So from aerospace to biotech to defense and climate and so much more, I bring a systems perspective to what we're seeing occurring in industry, in academia, and in the world at large. And so you're bringing together these observations and analysis to you nearly every week. It's all free. So if that sounds interesting, head over to theendeffector.com and look for the link to sign up for telemetry. And so now let's go back to our exploration of how quantum mechanics and artificial intelligence will help lead us into the century of atoms.
Quantum hasn't been there for a long time. The problem is that we were not able to extract that value, and how AI has developed itself in the last decade, the hardware progress in terms of GPUs and TPUs and CPUs, the amount of data that we have available, and the quality of the algorithms that have been published in the last decade, all those three phenomena have made possible that we apply all that to the quantum physics. That our theories that have been proved experimentally in the labs for the last 100 years, they are not new. Again, they've been there just waiting for AI to be able to come and take it and solve problems today.
Oh, that's a fantastic illustration. So thank you very much.
I think that's something that's really interesting. And from when I talk with folks about SandboxAQ and some of the breadth of offerings that have and will have, sometimes it's like, well, is there a fundamental physics sort of breakthrough that SandboxAQ is building upon? And as I hear you talk, Fernando, it sounds like it's maybe less about like some sort of new experimental physics phenomena that was discovered, and more so about bringing together two fields that had been previously pretty far apart, and figuring out that they're actually really complementary. Is that a better characterization?
Yes, you can think about it as when you merge two disciplines, two areas of knowledge is exponential. It's not linear. So you can see a very clear example. In the last 100 years, you've been seeing traditional physicists or Newtonian physicists going into each discipline, medicine, to create new medical devices. To finance, you see a lot of physicists in finance. Why? Because they applied physics models to run those performance optimizations and other areas. And you have them in every discipline, geography, astronomy, etc. So you bring physics into each discipline. Now, think about, we have a new kind of physics, quantum physics. You can still bring all that discipline into every other discipline that exists today, and it's going to revolutionize one of them. And the AI can be seen as a tool or the bridge that is helping converge those two. Let me give an example. When we work in encryption, for example, and so we work in all quantum related, but quantum related doesn't mean that you are deeply using quantum physics. Most of our solutions are more AI based right now. Encryption, for example. What we discover is that the quantum computers were progressing really fast. Google, Microsoft, IBM, they all invested billions of dollars on these quantum computers. And the roadmap is there. In 1994, Peter Shor described these algorithms that said if one day we have a quantum computer, this algorithm breaks RSA, the encryption as we know it today. We did not pay attention to it because there was not a roadmap to a quantum computer. Today, not only we have that roadmap, but we have many more players investing in nations investing in it. And we know by the end of this decade, probably, we will have a validated quantum computer capable of breaking RSA. And now with the progress of AI, we can even expect that roadmap to accelerate because AI is helping build those quantum computers in a better way and solve problems. The error correction, that it's the most of the troublemaker in trying to reach a good quality quantum computer. So what we discovered is that we needed to modernize encryption. I'm talking about modernizing encryption, not using quantum mechanics to create new encryption models. That could be done in the future. But the first thing we discovered was every encryption, every application, every infrastructure network across the world, it's right now in danger. Why? Because what we call store now, decrypt later. So we know nations are stealing your information, storing it, and they can't read it today, but they will be able to read it once they have a quantum computer. And we don't know if that's going to be in 3 years or 7 years or 10 years, but we know that could happen. So any information that you want to protect today has to be protected with a different kind of encryption model. Those new protocols are public. All the community has got together, academia, private institutions, saying we need to solve this. They present 69 candidates, and NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, run this process to find the final candidates and say these protocols that, again, they do not use quantum computers, it's just new mathematical problems, cannot be solved, or as of today, cannot be solved by quantum computer. So how do you implement now these new protocols that the community has developed into every layer of your infrastructure in your encryption? So we discovered that encryption was not a priority for the last 20 years into most organizations. So there was a huge difficulty to find it, figure out what you have, where you have it, and once you know it, then switch it to the new protocols. It's much more complicated than we can think of, especially for big organizations like Department of Defense agencies, big banks, telecommunication agencies, hospitals, healthcare providers. All the critical data they host has to be protected. So while we're working on the platform that we have, AQ ActiveGuard, it's modernizing your encryption in a way that allows you to create the inventory of what you have, manage it, and then also be able to migrate at the right time and create the crypto agility that is going to protect your organization. That has strong AI into it because you have to manage huge amounts of data, but does not use any quantum physics phenomenon. But so it's quantum related, but it's not using quantum physics in that sense. Does that make sense? It's most software solution. It's pure SaaS to protect you against a quantum threat.
What is the key to protecting against these future quantum threats? Like, what's the biggest difference of the mathematical model? Is it just more complicated, more randomness? Is there a special sort of formula?
It's a good question. They mostly based on lattice models. So quantum computers, there's misunderstanding. Some people say, well, once the quantum computers are going to be here, they're going to replace everything else. They won't. They are better on some kind of calculations. But we will always keep on having classical computers. So they are really good at solving the kind of problems that we use, which is the factorial number. It's to encrypt our data. Your password that you add, they ask you to make it longer and to add special symbols because it makes it much harder for a classical computer. The classical computer can solve your password problem, but it will take them thousands of years. It's not unsolvable. It just takes too long. And it happens that how the quantum computers operate, they are really good at solving that kind of problem. So we are just changing the kind of mathematical problem that is much harder for classical and quantum computers to solve. As we know it today, it's as always in cybersecurity, things are going to progress. So once we get to solve this problem today, I imagine in the next years or decades, somebody will come out with a new threat, a new approach. It's just like it's called the Red Queen theory, where there is you build a bigger wall, and then another one, and then another one, and they learn to climb it, and you build a bigger wall, and they learn to climb it. It's a never-stop situation. But today is really critical, and that's why Biden has even signed a memorandum about it to force all the Department of Defense agencies to migrate all the data. We're talking about more than 200 defense agencies that are migrating all the infrastructure.
Since I think SandboxAQ has maybe not necessarily a horse in the race, but certainly a vested interest in understanding the NIST people's work in sort of verifying or validating, certifying post-quantum cryptography approaches that are sound. How does an entity like that, informed by industry, know when it has something that looks like provably secure? Because if I recall, a year or two ago, there was, as part of that down selection of the sort of 16 or so finalists, and then one of those approaches was cracked with a classical computing approach. And so now we're even more reduced in terms of the number of approaches, but they look robust. How do you know if it's robust enough for now?
It's a great question. And the answer is you don't. But you have to use it. How do we know RSA has never been broken? We just think it has never. But it has probably never been broken. But what if somebody did but never told anybody? It's like when you watch Enigma, the movie, the first encryption models, once you use it and you use the information that you were not supposed to access, then the other side will know that you have something that is breaking their encryption. They will try to develop a new one. In this case, well, that's where we develop what we call crypto agility, which does not really exist today inside corporations, to the capability to be able to switch your protocols and use multiple of them, depends on the situation. And that's the first approach to protect yourself in the future. What we're working with DISA, for example, with the Department of Information and Security Agency, with Microsoft and Deloitte, who are our partners, it's to start implementing this inventory assessment and crypto agility with them. And that's the first response to it. So to answer your question, how do we know it won't be broken? We should expect it to be broken. But the good news is that this is a very united community. The cybersecurity community, especially in encryption, we have a research team that works on developing new protocols, but also to try to, they help each other. So you have not just Sandbox trying to defend it. You have all the companies. NIST has a consortium of, I think that right now it was originally 12 companies, now it's more than 20 that are collaborating, Cisco, Amazon, Google, ourselves, and others, just talking and trying to solve this problem because it's a problem that is critical for all humanity and all societies. So they work together. Last 2 weeks, just to give you another example, there was a new paper that came out that, if it was true, it was breaking one of the other families of the protocols, and it was a big deal. So what happens? The community gets together. And for the last 2 weeks, we thought we did not have one candidate as a finalist because that paper was breaking it. Finally, in the last, like a week ago, they found the bug in that paper. So the paper had a mistake and did not break the protocol. We should expect more things like this to happen in the future, which are good because it's testing the protocols over and over again. Imagine how many times RSA has been tested. We need that. We need those protocols to be tested. And it's a community that collaborates a lot. So when somebody tries to break it, they thank that person, say, hey, thank you for letting us know. And they all work together to try to push back the paper or just say, okay, then we need a new protocol. Let's all work again together to develop a new one. Reminds me a little bit of COVID. When we were in COVID and all the pharmas, everybody was working together and we got to a solution in less than a year. That was fascinating. When you have all humanity just working together on one same problem, we're kind of unstoppable. We can almost solve any problem. The hardest part is to get everyone together.
What would you say is, so we talked a little bit about cryptography and GPS. What application of AI and quantum do you think is going to be the most impactful for society in the next 10 years?
I don't like to classify them. I feel like I have to choose a baby or one of my kids. But I'll tell you, let's cover, for example, the AI simulation that we haven't really talked that much about it. Because cryptography is critical. Imagine all your data right now being exposed. GPS is critical. I just read an article today, thousands of airplanes just have to land. I have a few friends are commercial pilots. They tell you, they're teaching us how to fly without GPS right now. Because it depends on where you fly, especially in the East Mediterranean, you don't have it. So that poses a huge problem. And on the AI simulation, the potential is huge. When you think about how far we've got with zeros and ones, everything we do today, this video recording, the messages I'm sending you, the emails, everything, all the data we're storing is just binary. It's just zeros and ones. And that was for the last 100 years. So that's where the AI plays hard. Then the next 100 years, the next 21st century, we call it, is going to be the society of atoms, because everything is made out of atoms. And understanding how the atoms behave, it means using quantum mechanics. So the AI simulation, for example, what we're doing is, and again, this doesn't use quantum computers. If you know about GPUs, they were originated for video games. Then they repurpose them to run machine learning models. Now NVIDIA has this huge boom because they repurpose the GPUs to run the AI models that have this huge hype right now. And the stocks of NVIDIA are crazy high right now. It's great. Now NVIDIA also announced their quantum division and how they're repurposing those GPUs to run quantum mechanics models. What does this mean? This means we are able to understand how atoms behave between each other. In AI simulation, this is critical for drug development. We spend more than 12 to 15 years, and more than $3 to $5 billion every time to try to develop an antibiotic. That is crazy. And you can imagine how many of them fall apart. So it's billions of dollars being wasted. And that's because we are mostly approaching that as a try and error. But if we are able to simulate and understand how atoms behave, then we are able to create and understand drugs, proteins, simulate them, how they behave, the compounds, how they bind with each other much better. And that's how you use the AI and the quantum mechanics, simulate a real nature. Creating new materials, for example, all the plastics, all the cement, all those materials that we have to use today because of how the society has been built across those materials. And we want to solve the climate change and we want to be more nature friendly. We have to speak nature language, and that's using the atoms. How can we create a substitute of plastic with the same properties, but being friendly with nature? Only a combination of atoms can help us solve that. And understanding that combination of atoms means using quantum mechanics with the GPUs today. So the AI simulation is fascinating. We're just using the quantum mechanics equations and properties and running them on GPUs. And we're getting fascinating results.
With these awesome new capabilities coming online, or what concerns and opportunities do you have toward the dual use aspects of these capabilities? Like how do we think about how the quantum sciences and advancements in artificial intelligence together could improve safety and security, or be used as weapons, or be used for commercial advantage, or to help clean up and protect our natural world?
It's a great question. I'm an optimistic, and always, well, we're using AI and quantum a lot with science, right? Everything we're talking about, the chemistry and new materials, drug development, has a science backend behind it. Science can always be used both ways. And most technologies can always be used both ways. But I think we can agree that, for example, the internet, there are many evil things you can do on the internet, but I think we can agree that our society is better with the internet than without the internet. We've achieved huge amount of progress, knowledge sharing. If you can remember where you could not share things online, or where your university was firstly connected to the other universities and you could download an entire paper, today you publish a paper and you get the knowledge. What we are going to be able to achieve in science, for example, all these new AI models, LLMs, knowledge graphs, neural networks, reading all those papers and be able to synthesize and tell you, like, this is what has already been done, and even discover new solutions on science. That's fascinating. Like, as fascinating as it was 20, 30 years ago to be able to share all your information. And if you remember the beginning of the internet, some of the creators say, why would people want to share everything? They didn't even think about the potential of the internet. Today is similar. LLMs are great, but it's just a surface. How are you going to be able to really tell an AI models and build it and build synthetic data and tell them, here are all the solutions that we've tried so far. Can you read all these papers and on solving, any Alzheimer or any other disease, and say, can you help me develop a new approach? Can we use these molecules in a different way? We've tried all these other combinations of molecules in the past, which are not many because we had to do it manually. What if we can now simulate all the trillions of combinations that are possible and find the final 5, 10, 100 candidates? That's fascinating. To me, that's going to be much more progress than the other dual use. Of course, there will be some, but I'm an optimist that says that the goods always wins.
So one concern with AI is kind of, transparency and trust of it, right? Let's say if we take an AI and we read 1,000 papers and the AI says, well, this is your next experiment, try this. How do you address the trust aspect of AI?
It's a good question. It's very important that we keep ethics and that we don't forget the human part of how we build the models. So training all our engineers and developing that sense of trust it's very, very important. AI, it's a little bit at its infancy. And I feel that most of the market just are expecting from those new AI models to be as developed as we are. But if you have kids, your kids take time. They take time to learn. They're going to see you doing this thing and commit an error and learn from it. So it's important that we not only set the right approach for those AI models, but that we allow some control environment so we can learn from it. Because the AI is still learning. And we are at the infant's level what we're going to do in the next 4, 5, 10 years is fascinating. Where we should expect some mistakes from it. And again, going back to the human part of it, Fei Li, who's our senior advisor, runs these ethics groups of AI at Stanford. Those research work, collaborating with them, and understanding what society cares about it's very important. So we can develop our models being aligned with that trust that we expect from those models.
Could we look a little bit at how you got to where you are today? Because I think I think folks would find it inspirational since you're working at a really complex sort of interaction between two incredibly complex fields, and I'd like to get into that a little bit later from a recruitment perspective. But for where you are now, Vice President, SandboxAQ, can we walk backward to the Google X days and maybe before, and understand some of how earlier Fernando, how he thought about the world and ended up getting to this interesting position?
How far do you want me to go?
Well, yeah. What was the weather like when you were born?
I'll summarize, but I studied industrial engineering. I did not really know what I wanted to do. And then I studied a master's degree in energy economics. So then work in oil and gas, and then enter Google to expand Google products in Latin America. That was my first exposure to tech. And it was fascinating because working not only on the ads part, but then I started working on the partnership side with Google products that bring a lot of value to humanity, but they were not revenue driven. Like Google Maps, Google News, Google Crisis Response that most people haven't heard about, but it's all this data analytics work that helps you like prevent from an earthquake or from a flood, for example. They do amazing work on that field. And that has started like merging my passion for helping humanity and the tech that I have learned inside of Google. So there's a famous speech from Steve Jobs that talks about connecting the dots. It's the dots of your life, of things that you've done in the past. At some point in your life, you get connected. They connected my energy background with my knowledge of how Google work and run. And I started working with the Google X project on energy. It was a new approach to generate clean energy with wind power. That's how I transitioned to Google X. Google X, I mean, you know it. It's a fascinating place, very creative. It's this abandoned mall building with many different backgrounds, and you learn from that the creativity and the innovation really comes from diversity. That diversity of if you put four, doctors, cardiologists in the room to solve a problem, they are probably going to think the same solution because most of their life they've wired their brain in a way that they think very similarly. If you put a telecommunications engineer, a cardiologist, a writer, an artist, and three other different professions, they have a way to approach life that is very different. And the way to think about that problem in a very different way. So you're going to get probably 6, 7, 8 different solutions for the same problem. So diversity was that what started as serendipity. The AI and quantum started as a teaching. As I mentioned, we were teaching software engineers inside of all Google this quantum techniques like tensor networks approach to solve problems regularly. And we were discovering by implementing that there was a lot of value. And when we started discovering, wow, this makes a lot of sense. And then we started talking to the market. Hey, will you use this? Hey, will you pay for this? And then once we started gaining all those yeses, we say, this is amazing. And how come nobody's looking at this? But sometimes that happens. It's one of our advisors mentioned, like there's these situations only happen once in a lifetime. It's like an alignment of planets. You have a huge space, and you have an entire new industry, new technologies that are right there waiting for you. And you have the right team and the right leader, Jack Hidary, who's our CEO, to grab that and make it a huge success and just be able to solve all those problems that have been there. Technologies, there are many of them that are waiting for the right person or the right moment or the right other technology to unlock it. And this was the right time, the right place. AI got to the right moment. That had happened 10 years ago, it would not have happened. And the quantum mechanics got to the right moment. Also, quantum computers with the roadmap and the quantum science have been already like de-risked in the labs. It was just waiting for us on the science shelves. So I feel like it's just passion and curiosity. Be able to say, okay, I'm going to learn this because it seems like it's a new approach and it feels like people haven't used it that much. But it's the top of the iceberg, right? What you see right now means that we've looked at many other things in the back about video work. And that try and error, that curiosity to keep on learning, to keep on going every day at night, reading that article that they send you, reading that paper, talking to those people in that research lab, flying to conferences and listening to those experts, and then testing things. It's what gets you to the point where, okay, now this is working. Now this is ready. Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question. I think I got a little bit out of the...
I think that is really, really helpful, and it's something that, I think it's fascinating. And when you and I have been sort of co-located at X, we shared some time in our different projects, but it was, I agree. It's been fascinating to see you, Jack, other members of the team as it was starting to come together, and then there's been SandboxAQ being sort of like a gorilla in its manifestation and its size. And another piece of output that I think have been helpful for the community too, such as I should mention Jack's book of quantum computing It's an applied approach. I like it in part because it includes like code samples, so it makes it more tactical than I must say a lot of like sort of academic flavored books that are a little bit more like, well, I think I intellectually understand what's going on, but now what? This one was applied in many ways, and so I'm sure another probably more writing, more education on the docket. So I'm curious, how do you stay up to date on potentially all these topics that your company is trying to solve for? Like, what resources do you recommend or approach so that for folks who maybe want to get more interested in one or more of these spaces?
Yes, it's complicated, but it's feasible. It's curiosity,
Yeah.
and it's we're lucky. I am lucky enough. Well, we have, first, for anybody who wants to start, we have a YouTube channel. We create content because we understand that there's a lot of people out there that are curious about this field, and we want them to learn. We want them to know more. We want our partners to know. So from the beginning of the company, we have an education team. That education team is not only signing partnership with us on the most prestigious universities and research labs, so they send us residents and we work with them. And it's very important to be linked to the academic society. But at the same time, we create the content for our partners. We have an education platform where any partner we work with, we give them access so they know as much as we know. We want them to know as much as we know, because the more they know, the more they understand. It reminds me a lot of when I joined Google. We spent a lot of time teaching, a lot of time going to the market, saying this is how the digital industry works. This is how ads work. This is how YouTube works, because the companies didn't understand it. And the more they understood, the more they will know how to use Google. So this is a kind of similar. We want the society to know about what we're doing, and we create that content for everybody. Then I'm lucky enough that I have, all these channels I work with the engineers day to day. I visit the lab every time I can. So all the conversations turn around this. So we have the cryptography conversation, the QNAP conversation, all those little hubs. So you can't read everything. Now GPT is helping you a lot, but you have to see, you cannot be on top of everything. But I am exposed to all those latest papers and what's happening in all those fields. But at the end of the day, you have to study every day. You have to continue being curious. If you stop, you stay out of field, which is what happens to many companies. What we are working on right now did not really exist 10 years ago or when I studied in college decades ago, right? And we should assume that what we will be working on in 10 years, we don't know about it yet. So the only way to stay relevant and offer value to our partners is to continuously enjoy educating and enjoy learning. When I say enjoy educating, I mean most of the people at SandboxAQ also teach, because you learn better when you teach. So we love going to universities. I teach I go to board of directors, I go to conferences, big, small think tanks, and I tell about everything that we know, because it's important. When you tell this story, that's when you really have to learn it, because you better study and prepare your materials, and that's what makes you really assimilate the knowledge. I think there's a study, I think it's more than 80% or 90% of your knowledge retention if you teach it. And it's only like 20% when you read it. So that's very, very important.
That sounds like fantastic advice for all our listeners, as well as they're trying to stay up to date in this, kind of fast-paced technology. Do you have any other advice for our listeners who are kind of interested in both AI and quantum? Like, where do they even start to learn about all this?
I would say they kind of start in our YouTube channel, but then they can find their own personal trainer, right? Like, we were so lucky. When I studied quantum physics in college, I only had my teacher and my book. And either you liked it or there was no many other areas that you could go. You could go to a library or find a different book, but that's it. Today, you have, and now you're going to have the copilots, AI copilots for education, that are going to be tailored for your style and what you like, and they're going to know more about you, so they're going to be able to explain things as you want it. I use it, not every day, but almost every day, to understand even some concepts, or even to create some materials. Depends on the audience that I have. It's funny, you can go to GPT, for example, and say, can you explain quantum mechanics using cupcakes for my grandma? And they're going to give you a great analogy of trying to explain that for your grandma or for your mother or for a no technical audience. So you can really end up finding the perfect style that matches your curiosity and your learning style. And then once you find it, just remain curious and go into what you're really passionate about. When some students or some younger people that I mentor tell me, what should I focus on? Should I do this? My answer is always the same. What do you find yourself doing on a Sunday evening? What do you find yourself reading about? Or that YouTube video that it's 1 a.m. and you tell yourself, what am I doing? I have to go to work tomorrow. Why am I watching this professor explaining this right now? That's because you're passionate about it. If you have to teach something, what would that be? You're going to pick the subject or the materials that you really care about. And so we try to hire, for example, for attitude, not for skills. The skills, you have to keep on learning them. You want to hire people in your teams that are going to keep on learning, are going to push themselves constantly to keep on learning, because what we work on today, again, is going to be obsolete in a few years. We're going to have to apply new things in a few years, and we cannot know today what it is. So to stay up to date, curiosity and learning. I think that's a major thing that I try to find when we hire people or in ourselves. Keep on learning.
Yeah, there are experts in artificial intelligence. There are experts in the various parts of the quantum sciences, but I think globally there are probably only 1,000 people in the world who know a meaningful amount of both artificial intelligence and quantum technologies. Fernando, I think you're in that camp of one of those special minds that's able to bring those complex fields together. We really appreciate you joining us. Something that we like to ask and invite each guest is to have a little sign off for us. Could you do that sign off for us?
Hello, my name is Fernando Dominguez Pinuaga, and I'm Vice President at SandboxAQ. Stay tough.